Hey guys, one of the things about owning cattle is that you have to rotate them from paddock to paddock. The thing about our property is divided in half by a road through our property that we have. And if I move cows, it means I have to move fencing, I have to close off roads and stuff like that. We have our main gates closed off, and I have this wire here that I have to literally roll out each time because it's too far of a span across our driveway here because of the angle to be able to put up gates to do it with. So this is just a fix. I've had to do it before. Alright guys, they already heard the chain rattling on the gate. They already know what this means. Come on, girl. Come on. Come on. Let's go. Come on. Come on. Let's go. Come on. Woo. Come on. Come on. Go. Whoop. Come on. Come on. Let's go. Whoop. Come on, Hemp. Come on. Come on. Come on, Hemp. Whoop. Come on, boy. This is one of the things we have to contend with, guys. We have neighbors who have cows too. See him over there. Trying to show his dominance. Okay guys, what we're trying to do is get the cows to come in here. There's grass on the upper end of all this in there, deep Argentina Bahias growing around the outside edges. It's about 6 to 10 inches deep. We're trying to let the cows eat that down. Plus, we're trying to let them clean some of the underbrush up. Since we don't have goats anymore, a little bit of the underbrush is starting to come up, and the cows are really good, especially the Dexter Breed, is really good at cleaning up things like smilax vines and muscadine vines that's coming up and all, little young tree sprouts and stuff like that. They're really good at cleaning all that kind of stuff up. And of course you see we've got Dolly and our other new little Dexter heifer that's trying to establish a little bit of dominance there, but we're just letting them clean up our other part of our property. You can see one of them there against a tree now that's actually eating up some of the brush around the trees. That's what we want. We want them to clean the land up so that we can get more grass. We have grass planted in here now for the winter, but we want to let them come in and try to clean up as much of the older stuff as they can. Come on. Come on, let's go. Come on. Let's go. Come on. Whoop. Come on. Whoop. Come on. Don't let you. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Go. Come on, girl.
Come on.
Oh! Come on, Dolly. Come on, Dolly. Come here, Dolly. Come on, girl. Come here. Come on. Come on, girls. Okay, guys, we got 2 Dexters per stall. That works out good. They got plenty of space. We got the bull. He stays over here by himself, and then Dolly's in the pen by herself over here, so that when it comes time for her to calve, she'll automatically know to go in that pen, not go in one of these here. So we'll sit down in a minute and we'll have a Q&A about these cows. Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deepsouth Homestead on the Q&A part about the Dexter cows. Now, a lot of people have asked tons of questions about why we chose the Dexter breed rather than one of the more commercial breeds that we have in this country. And guys, there was lots of reasons why we chose them. Now, there's a lot about Dexter cattle that when I began looking at, I didn't even know, or I wasn't even aware of. I just knew that Wanda and I did not need a 12 to 1,800 pound cow when it come time to butcher. We never eat that much meat. And plus, we have limited land, and we wanted to be able to, you know, to raise something that we thought would be sustainable here. We live in the deep South, and a lot of our grass, sometimes during the heat of the summer, is not the best. So we didn't want to come in with a commercial breed of cows that it's not going to do well on this. So the Dexter breed is the one that we chose. Now the Dexters were actually originated from Ireland. They were bred up by a man originally named Mr. Dexter. Now this was in the late 1800s, early 1800s, late 1700s, somewhere where I'm understanding. These cows were bred for the rough terrain of southern Ireland to be able to forage and to be able to do good. Now this breed of cow was originated from what they call the Kerry, that's K-E-R-R-Y, dairy cow. It was bred from that. And for many, many years, it wouldn't even be given its own name as a Dexter, just simply because it was called one of the Kerry breeds. And it would go on to eventually become its own breed of cattle. Now, I'm going to go over a lot of things that's been asked to us as questions on our channel and try to do my best at answering as many of them as I can, and maybe enlightening you on a little bit of other stuff about the cows. They were a rare breed until recently. There was at one point, there was only, here a while back, there was only a few thousand left in the world. But thankfully, people have learned about this breed, and now they're thriving here in America and other parts of the world, Africa and different places. They're really becoming a thriving breed, and they're making a really big comeback because of the small amount of space that it takes for them to be sustainable. And it's really a good thing, I believe, for the Dexter cattle breed. They are better foragers than other cattle are. Like I said earlier, they were bred for the rough terrain of Ireland, some of the mountainous parts of Ireland. They will eradicate your property a lot of times of weeds that other cows will not eat. They forage on leaves from trees. They're better foragers for food than other breeds of cattle are as far as converting forage into meat and weight. They seem to do better at this, and they literally, I can speak from experience on one of my pieces of property here. They literally took a weedy, grown-up piece of property that we were thinking about bringing a track hoe in and doing some clearing in a swamp bottom and all that kind of stuff, you know, really to help clear the land. And these cows went in there and they literally cleared it up. I mean, it looks like a park in there almost now. They've gotten it so clean. So as far as their foraging is concerned, they're better foragers than a lot of the commercial breeds are. They're very long life cattle. A lot of the stuff I've studied up and read on them says that they can live up to 25 years. And that's a long life expectancy for a cow and still be productive in those years. That's one thing that appealed to me at my age, was not having to be able to replace cattle all the time, but yet to be able to have a breed of cow that would last until I couldn't handle cows anymore. And the Dexter Breed, when I found out that they could last up to 25 years, to me that was, and be productive, that was really that was a seller for me right off the bat right there. Another reason is that they reproduce really well. They do well with birthing and stuff like that. The cow, they say, can have up to can have up to 10 births with no problem whatsoever, and even beyond that, they can still birth, and they're easy birthing usually. So that's another factor that I didn't want to have to be out worrying about pulling cows, because I've done that my whole life. You know, having to get out there and pull cows, get a cow down, lose a cow. Now, it's still possible to lose them. Don't get me wrong. You can still lose a cow, especially with some of the problems that Dexters face. We'll talk about that in a minute. You can easily lose any cow, whether it's a commercial breed or whether it's a Dexter. You just have to be on top of your game. But it seems that Dexters are a little better at birthing than the commercial breeds are. The thing that we liked about the Dexters is their weight doesn't usually go over, it can go up to as high as 900 pounds, but it usually stays down around 700. And that's one thing that we really admired about them, was the simple fact that they weren't a huge cow. You know, they're ranged between 48 inches is usually about where they're at. 48, 49 inches is the height of a standard Dexter. That's a comfortable cow for us. It's not overly large, but yet it's just a good sized cow. And when it comes time for butchering, we're not looking at such a large quantity of meat that we can't consume it before it actually goes bad in our freezer. They were, one of the things about the Dexters here in the U.S. we were talking about earlier is they were actually imported into the United States. I think it was around 1910, sometime around in that era, right in there, they were brought to America, and they have thrived here since, have done really, really good. The milk from the Dexter cows is one of the questions we've been asked. The milk from the Dexter cows is very high in solids, which makes it really good for making butters and cheeses and things like that. It's just a high quality milk for doing those type things, and that's one of the reasons we chose this particular breed, was because of the high solids in the milk and its and their ability to produce a high butterfat content. So for that question, that's one of the reasons on milk that we chose that particular breed of cow. And a lot of questions has been asked about the meat quality of Dexter cows. Dexter cattle meat is very lean. It has good marbling, very high quality meat, very good tasting meat, which makes the Dexter cow very desirable for meat consumption. If you love the taste of beef and stuff like that, the beef cow, Dexter is really a good quality animal when it comes to the production of a good tasting meat that has good marbling and just the right amount of fat content, but more lean than it is fat. So that's one thing that we looked for in the Dexter also when we were looking for a cattle for our homestead here. They can also be used as oxen. That's one thing. They're small. If you needed an ox, you can use them for that. They've been used for that in other countries, Africa and Ireland and other places. I've read some stories where they've used them for oxen there. So that's another quality in the future. Should we need that, we could take a small one and begin to work with him, and it would be a plus for us here at the homestead should we ever need that in an animal. The other thing about Dexters that you want to look for, because we've been asked, well, what do we need to look for, Danny? In Dexter cattle, you have what's called short-legged and non-short-legged Dexters. I recommend the non-short-legged ones because the short-legged ones usually, there's a gene that we'll talk about here in a little while that produces the short-legged ones, and I try to stay away from the short-legged ones if at all possible, especially in a bull, because of his ability to be able to reach the cows during breeding time. So you want to try to look for the longer-legged ones and not the short-legged cows. So we've been asked that question, so maybe that'll answer that question about the legs on the cows. The Dexter cows are normally black, but now they are some red ones and some dun ones. The color really doesn't matter that much. The only thing is when it comes to registering, if one is not black and it's red, then sometimes you have to do some blood work tests to see if the DNA shows up that it is a purebred Dexter if you're looking for a registered animal. So that's one thing about the colors of the animal, because we've been asked, what colors are they? And the reds and the black, or the black and red cross, and all that seems to be the color that is most prevalent. Now the black is the color of the Dexter, but the red and the black can be mixed together on them. They are. We've had a lot of questions or a lot of comments about this. Is they are naturally horned. A true Dexter is naturally horned, and if you don't want horns, then they need to be dehorned or budded or whatever you want to call it, to keep the horns away, because their horns do grow natural and they do grow white and usually in an upright position on their heads. So that's another thing you want to take into consideration. Now, here recently, there are some Dexter breeds coming out that are naturally polled, that have been crossed to be naturally polled. So you might be lucky enough to find one of those breeds, but you're going to probably pay a lot more for that breed if you find it. Our Dexter bull has little tiny horns on his head, like little scurvies, because I'm not sure the guy who had him when he was a calf, he was in a petting zoo, and it's possible that he scooped his horns or something and might have left some little scurvies or something on there. Didn't get them all whenever they did it, because he has just little nubbins on his head. But that's something you might want to take into consideration, is that they are horned animals naturally. One thing about them is they can breed at around, because we've been asking how old do they have to be before they breed. They can breed between 15 and 18 months. Both the bull and the heifer can both be bred. The heifer can be bred at 15 to 18 months. the bull is able to breed at 15 to 18 months. So that was another plus to us. They don't have to be, 2 or 3 years old before they can actually breed and or carry a calf. I mean, that's another thing that was desirable for us because of just the length of time. Because we didn't buy bred animals. We bought heifers and we bought a bull for our homestead here. Now, one thing that the Dexter cows can suffer from is a problem called PHA. I can't even pronounce it, so I'm not even going to try. It's just called PHA. You can Google it if you want to know what the word is. What it is, to my understanding, is when a Dexter calf is being carried by the mother, it's a problem that causes the lungs to fill up with fluid, and the calf will either be aborted or it will be born dead. And this is one of the problems that you have to watch out for if it has this, is when the cow gets ready to have the calf, if the lungs is full of fluid, then the calf can't pass through the birth canal, and you can lose both the calf and the cow. So these are things that, this is one of the problems, because we've been asked, Danny, what are some of the problems that you can face with Dexter cow? And this is one of the problems. Now, there is a disease, it's called, if I pronounce this right, and it's called chondrodysplasia. It's totally harmless as far as, the quality of the animal is concerned or anything like that. It just means that they're short-legged. It's a gene that's passed down that usually means that their legs will be like 8 inches shorter than a normal Dexter's is. And there is a DNA test for this. You can test them to see both for the PHA and the chondrodysplasia. You can have them tested to see if they have these diseases. And if they do, then it's advisable not to breed these two of them that have the same problem together, because you just simply enhance the problem. I'm not a vet, and I don't know a lot about the breeding practices with these diseases, but to my understanding, if you breed one that is a carrier to one that's not a carrier, you can breed this out of them, but it may pop up down the bloodline somewhere. But it's a pretty good chance, if you breed two of them together that have the problem, of having a birth problem, and passing that gene on. So that's something that you might, if you're really interested in the Dexter breed, and you don't want any of these problems. I mean, here at Deepsouth Homestead, our thing is, if we have one that has chondrodysplasia or something like that, and it's a short-legged animal, we'll just butcher it to eat because it's perfectly fine. Now, if it has the PHA, then we would look at, if it bursts in the calf and we realize that the calf is dead and we have it checked and it does have that, then we probably would butcher it also, or because there's no sense in selling it to somebody for a breed cow because it's not going to work. So it would be kept here strictly for meat. So we feel like it's not a loss for us either way that we go. As far as I know, these are the only two disease problems that I'm aware of with the Dexters that I would call a major problem. We've been asked a lot about milk, and I talked to you a little bit about milk previously, but a lot of people will know about the A1 and the A2 that people talk about with Dexters. A true Dexter is an A2, to my understanding, which is a protein that's primarily in the Dexter breed. Now, this protein is homogeneous, if I pronounce that right, which means it's kind of like, I guess you might say it's kind of like goat milk in a lot of ways. It's naturally homologous. The solids are really tiny, the particles, which makes it easily digestible for the human body. And a true Dexter doesn't have the A1 protein. Now, your commercial dairy cows have the A1 protein, is basically what they are. It's what I understand in talking to people about this. And that's why so many people are pushing for the true purebred Dexters, is for the A2 protein, because the A2 protein carries a lot of health benefits with it. There's a lot of stuff about it they don't understand just at the moment, but they know that it limits heart disease. It supposedly limits the type 1 diabetes for people who consume it. It's good for that, and there's an array of other diseases that it's really good for people who have these problems and preventing these diseases also. So the A2 protein is what most people are looking for in the Dexter breeds. Now, we did not have ours checked to see if they are A1 or A2. It's not really a big issue to us right now, but in the future, if we were to start selling calves from ours, if we got too many, then we would start checking to see whether or not they had the true A2 protein. Now, a lot of people have asked us, says, well, now you have a Dexter that's crossed with a Jersey. What is that going to what's that going to do for the milk? Well, when you cross a Dexter with another breed like that, like the Jersey is going to primarily be an A1 protein, is what I understand. Then you have milk that will have both A2 and A1 proteins in it. Nothing wrong with the milk; it's perfectly fine. It still have good butterfat content and stuff, but that's what you run into. You end up with what's called an F1 cow. I don't want to go into a lot of stuff about F1 cows because there's a lot of controversy in that. When I raised cattle most of my life, people talked about, oh, I want an F1 Angus or I want an F1 Brangus or whatever. And basically, some people argue that in order to have an F1 cross, you have to have two purebreds bred together in order to have a true F1. And I will say that there's some truth to that. If you want a purebred F1, then that's what you have to have. But anytime you breed an F1, like a Dexter to a Jersey, you still get an F1. It's just not a purebred F1. It's the first breeding of them. And, you know, we have an F1 Dexter right now that is a Dexter bred to a Jersey. Now, it was a full-size Jersey. It wasn't a miniature Jersey. So we're hoping that everything goes all right with that, but she would be an F1, just not a registered F1 because her parents were not registered animals as far as I know. I hope that you know, this Q&A about a lot of the questions that we've been asked about the Dexters, because a lot of you have been wanting to look for Dexters and asking us lots of questions, emails, and things about Dexters. Hopefully, this has helped a little bit with some of your questions about Dexters as to why we went with this particular breed ourselves and some of the reasons why you might want to look for that breed and some of the pitfalls with the breed as far as disease is concerned. Every cattle breed has a disease issue just about. The Dexter is it's no different. It's just like every other cattle breed. Some have problems with pink eye, some have problems birthing. I mean, all of them have problems. It's just that you have to decide which problem it is that you're willing to live with. So guys, thank you for watching today, and thank you so much for just taking the time out of your day to spend it with us as we talked about and did the Q&A on the Dexter cattle. So thank you guys from Deepsouth Homestead.